So, done na tayo sa pag-define ng bawat element na nag-a-appear sa financial statements, which are the assets, liabilities, equity, income, and expense. How about naman yung mga account titles na under each element? So, assets. Under na assets, there is cash. Cash can be cash on hand, cash in bank, and petty cash fund. Define natin bawat account. First would be cash on hand. Cash on hand are coins, currencies, checks, and money orders that are in the hands or custody of the officer in charge or owner. What about cash in bank? These are cash deposited in a savings or current bank account. In simple words, once na itong coins, currencies, checks, money orders, dineposito mo na siya sa bank, dilipat na yung cash on hand into cash in bank account. Later, magbibigay tayo ng mga examples. Petty cash fund. These are coins, currencies, and replenishment check that are set aside to pay small or petty disbursements or expenses. So kapag meron kang cash in bank, kailangan na mag-maintain ka ng petty cash fund. Bakit? You can pay your expenses or kapag bumibili ka ng goods, pwede mo siyang bayaran through checks, which is directly babawas sa cash in bank. Pero meron kang mga disbursements or expenses na maliit lang yung amount. Halimbawa, bibili ka ng supplies. Umabot lang sa 100 pesos. So instead na gumawa ka ng cheque, babayaran mo na lang siya using your petty cash fund. Kasi hindi convenient na bayaran yung mga small amounts using checks. So that's the time na magkakaroon ng role si petty cash fund. So before tayo pumunta sa mga examples, balikan muna natin itong accounting equation. So assets equals liabilities plus equity. Every transaction na accountable na may encounter ninyo, lahat sila mag-a-adhere sa equation na to. Assets being on the left side of the equation, liabilities and equity on the right side. And ano bang connection ng equation na to sa isang journal entry? So, ang isang journal entry is consists of a date, account titles, and the debits and credits. Kapag ang isang journal entry is consists of 1 debit and 1 credit, ang tawag mo doon ay isang simple journal entry. What about pag marami siyang debits or marami siyang credits? Ang tawag naman doon is a compound journal entry. So going back dito sa accounting equation. Kailan mo gagamitin ang isang debit or ang isang credit sa isang journal entry? Ibabase mo siya kung saan nakapwesto yung element sa equation. Example. For assets is on the left side. Kung ang debit ay ang left side ng isang entry and ang credit is ang right side ng isang entry, nasaan ang increase ng asset? Nasa debit ba siya o nasa credit? Since assets is on the left side, ang increase niya ay nasa debit. So, debit and credit. Ang increase ng asset is on the debit side of the account. Ano naman yung kanyang decrease? Ang decrease naman niya nasa credit side ng account. This account na ginagamit natin na letter T, ang tawag dito ay T-account. Isa siyang simple tool na ginagamit ng isang accountant para i-analyze yung increase or decrease ng particular na account. Paano naman yung liabilities? Si liabilities, nasa right side siya ng equation. So, nasaan naman ang kanyang increase? Debit ba or credit? Nasa credit, since siya ay nasa right side ng equation. Saan naman magre-reflect yung decrease sa liabilities? Yun naman ay sa kanyang left side, which is debit. So let's apply the same principle sa equity. Sa equity, nasa right side siya ng equation. So nasaan mapupunta ang kanyang increase? Debit ba or credit? That would be on the credit side. So for equity, ang increase niya is on the credit side. Saan naman ang decrease niya? Yun naman ay sa debit side ng kanyang account. Paano naman si income saka si expense? Kasi pag tinignan mo itong accounting equation, hindi mo siya makita dito. Paano yung magiging treatment mo sa kanya? Pareho ba ng assets or ng liabilities or kapareho ng sa equity? Para malaman natin, define muna natin ulit si income saka si expense. So, income. Si income ay increase in economic benefits that results in increase in owner's equity other than investment of the owner. So, income. Increase sa economic benefits na magre-resulta sa increase sa equity, maliban sa investment ng may-ari. So, si income, it directly affects the equity. In that case, ang magiging treatment mo sa kanya is parang kagaya ng equity. So, since si equity nasa right side, and ang increase sa kanya ay sa credit side, ang decrease naman ay sa debit side, paano naman si income? So, same sa treatment sa equity. Ang increase sa income, recorded siya sa credit side. Ang decrease naman sa income, recorded siya sa debit side. Paano naman si expense? So, define muna natin ulit si expense. Kung si expense ay opposite ng income, mula dun sa definition ng income, may infer mo na doon yung definition ng expense. Kung si income ay increase in economic benefits, si expense naman ay decrease in economic benefits. Kung si income ay magre-resulta sa increase ng equity, paano naman si expense? Siya naman ay decrease in owner's equity. So, decrease in economic benefits that results to decrease in owner's equity. Other than withdrawals by the owner. So, expense. Decrease sa economic benefits na magre-resulta sa decrease ng owner's equity maliban sa withdrawals ng owner. Balikan natin yung mga key accounts. If expense directly affects equity, pero yung effect niya na yun is opposite ng income, saan ang magiging increase or decrease ni expense? Gawin mo, mag-refer ka lang sa income, pero dapat opposite. Kabaliktaran. Kung ang increase sa income ay nasa credit side, saan naman ang increase ng expense? Yun naman ay sa debit side. Kung ang decrease sa income is on the debit side, saan naman na ang decrease ng expense? Yun naman ay sa credit side. For example, on January 2, Pepito established Diamond Sari-Sari Store. He made initial investment amounting to 30,000 pesos. So, sa transaction natin, alamin natin kung ano yung value received and value parted. Sa pagdetermine ng value received and value parted, ang palagi natin gagamitin na point of view is yung point of view ng business. So, para sa January 2, yun ay si Diamond Sari-Sari Store, hindi si Pepito. Since yung business considered siya as a separate entity apart from the owner. Ang transactions na i-record mo sa books is mga transactions ni business. Hindi ka doon mag-record ng personal na transaction ng owner. Example, kung si Pepito bumili siya ng cellphone for personal use, yung cellphone na binili niya, hindi mo yun pwedeng i-record as asset ng business. Since dedicated siya for use ni Pepito, hindi ni Diamond Sari-Sari Store. So, sa point of view ni Diamond Sari-Sari Store, ano yung kanyang na-receive? So, value received would be the cash amounting to 30,000 pesos. Ano naman yung kanyang value parted? Yun naman yung interest ni Pepito, interest of Pepito in the assets of the business. Ano yung tinutukoy natin na interest ni Pepito sa assets ng business? Yun yung kanyang equity. So, yung equity na yun amounting din to 30,000 pesos. Kapag halimbawa ang business nag-liquidate na siya or natigil na siya, meron si Diamond Sari-Sari Store na obligation na ibalik kay Pepito yung amount na yun after mabayaran lahat ng liabilities. So, meron tayong cash, meron tayong equity sa transaction. Set up muna natin yung T-account. Una muna ay cash on hand. Sunod ay para sa Pepito capital. Ang cash on hand, under siya ng assets. Ang Pepito capital, under ng equity. So, may na-receive si business na 30,000 pesos. So, nag-increase yung asset, particularly cash on hand. Ang increase sa asset, nire-record mo siya on the debit side. So, lagay natin 30,000 on the debit side. Ang Pepito Capital naman, under siya ng equity. Ang increase sa equity is credit. Ang decrease naman, debit. So, since nadagdagan yung equity ni Pepito sa business, ang increase na yung i-record mo on the credit side. So, 30,000 pesos on the credit. So, meron na tayong debit and credit. Pwede na natin gawin yung journal entry. Lagay natin yung year 2021, January 2. Entry mo, mauuna yung debit. So, ano muna? Cash on hand. Debit, cash on hand. ₱30,000 pesos. So, 30,000 pesos. Credit mo naman si Pepito Capital. ₱30,000. Then, wag mo kakalimutan yung description. To record Pepito's initial investment in Diamond Sari-Sari Store. Another transaction. On January 3, cash of 15,000 pesos was deposited in a checking account with Banco de Oro. So, yung transaction natin for January 3, it involves both cash in bank and cash on hand. Analyze natin, ano yung value received and value parted ni Diamond Sari-Sari Store. Na-receive niya is the cash of 15,000 deposited in the bank, which stands for the cash in bank. Value parted naman niya is cash of 15,000 which represents the cash on hand. So, meron kang increase sa cash in bank, and then meron kang decrease sa cash on hand. So, mag-set up muna tayo ng T-account for cash in bank. So, nag-increase si cash in bank amounting to 15,000. Since si cash in bank is an asset, and ang increase sa asset recorded sa debit side, so we'll put the 15,000 on the debit side of cash in bank. Kapalit nitong 15,000 na cash in bank, nabawasan naman yung ating cash on hand amounting to 15,000. Since cash on hand is an asset and ang decrease or bawas sa asset is recorded on the credit side, so we put the 15,000 on the credit side of cash on hand. So, meron na tayong entry, debit and credit. Record na natin siya on the journal book. So, on January 3, meron tayong debit, cash in bank, amounting to 15,000. Meron tayong credit sa cash on hand, amounting to 15,000. Then, wag mong kalimutan yung description. To record cash deposited in BDO. Sunod naman na transaction. On January 4, purchase goods intended for sale amounting to 5,000 pesos. Dagdagan pa natin ng additional information. Cash on hand was used in this transaction. Since meron na tayong cash in bank, i-specify lang natin na for this transaction, cash on hand yung ginamit. In case naman na cash in bank, dapat cheque siya. Nag-draw ng check. But this time, cash on hand muna tayo. So, ano yung ating value received and value parted? So, bumili tayo ng goods intended for sale. Ang goods na that are bought and intended for sale, ang tawag doon ay merchandise inventory. So, ang value received is merchandise. Ano naman yung value parted? Cash on hand. Amounting to 5,000. So, dagdag natin yung merchandise inventory sa ating definition. Merchandise inventory. These are goods purchased that are intended to be sold in the entity's normal business operations. So, meron tayong merchandise inventory na na-receive. Dagdagan natin yung T-accounts. So, merchandise inventory. So, we purchase merchandise amounting to 5,000. Since ang merchandise inventory under siya ng assets. Ang increase sa asset recorded sa debit side. So, lagay natin yung 5,000 pesos under the debit ng merchandise inventory. And then, nabawasan naman yung ating cash on hand. Since si cash on hand ay isang asset, and ang decrease sa kanya ay the credit side. So, lagay natin yung 5,000 on the credit side. So, meron na tayong debit and credit. Lagay na natin yung journal entry. January 4. Debit, merchandise inventory. ₱5,000. Credit naman yung cash on hand. ₱5,000. Then, wag mong kalimutan yung description. To record goods purchase that are intended for sale. Next transaction, January 5. Bought computer for office use at 15,000 pesos. Additional information, cash on hand was used for this purchase. So ano yung ating value received and value parted sa January 5? Value received is the computer for office use. Value parted is yung cash paid to purchase the computer. So, meron tayong increase sa asset as well as decrease sa asset. Dagdagan natin yung ating T-account for the office equipment. Equipment is a non-current asset. Expected siya na makonsume beyond the entity's normal operating cycle or lagpas sa 1 year yung gamit niya. Office equipment is an asset. Ang increase sa kanya ay sa debit side. So yung 15,000 pesos, lagay natin siya sa debit side ng office equipment. Para ma-purchase si equipment, nagbayad tayo ng 15,000 pesos cash. Si cash on hand ay isang asset. Ang decrease sa asset is recorded on the credit side. So, lagay natin yung 15,000 on the credit side of cash on hand. So, meron na tayong journal entry, debit and credit. Record na natin siya. January 5. Entry would be debit office equipment 15,000. Credit cash on hand 15,000. Lagyan natin ng description to record purchase of computer for office use. Sunod na transaction, January 7. Sold goods for 4,000 pesos cash. Nilagyan pa natin siya ng information. The cost of this merchandise sold was 2,000 pesos. And another additional information, periodic system is used. So, nagbenta tayo ng merchandise. Nakareceive tayo ng 4,000 cash kapalit ng 2,000 na inventory. Tapos, ang gamit natin is periodic system. So, si periodic system, isa siyang inventory accounting system. Aside from periodic, meron din tayong perpetual. So, periodic, inventory system, saka perpetual. Sa ngayon, hindi pa natin siya i-discuss comprehensively. So, background lang muna. Ang periodic system, malalaman mo lang ang inventory end mo kapag ka nagsagawa ka na ng physical count. Kapag ka nag-record ka ng sales, ang concern mo lang is yung either cash or accounts receivable, saka yung sales account. Kapag ka perpetual naman, every time na magkakaroon ng increase or decrease sa inventory, dapat mare-reflect yun sa journal entry. So accordingly, kapag ka perpetual ang ginamit sa transaction na to, dalawa yung magiging entry mo. Isa para dun sa sales, which is cash saka sales. Yung isa naman para sa dun sa merchandise sold na 2,000. Magre-record ka ng cost of goods sold, saka babawasan mo yung merchandise inventory under perpetual. So, sa transaction natin sa January 7, ano yung ating value received? So, ating na-receive is 4,000 cash for the merchandise sold. So, ano naman yung value parted? Yung merchandise na binenta mo. So, merchandise sold. For value received, nagkaroon ng dalawang increase. Yun ay sa cash on hand, saka sa income. For the income, ang gagamitin natin na account, since ang sari-sari store ay isang merchandising business, we will use the sales account. So, reflect natin siya sa entry. First, gawa muna tayo ng T account for sales. So, naka-receive tayo ng 4,000. Lagay natin sa cash on hand. Since si cash on hand ay isang asset, and ang increase sa asset ay sa debit side, so write natin yung 4,000 pesos sa debit side ng cash on hand. Kasama din sa nag-increase is yung sales. Ang sales ay isang income account. And ang increase sa sales or dagdag sa sales ay sa credit side. So, lagay naman natin yung 4,000 on the credit side. Meron na tayong journal entry, debit saka credit. Record na natin siya. January 7. Entry would be debit cash on hand na 4,000. Cash on hand. 4,000 pesos. Credit ng sales, 4,000 pesos. Lagyan natin ng description to record cash sales. What if ang ginamit natin is perpetual inventory system? So, maliban sa entry na to, debit cash on hand, credit sales, magkakaroon pa tayo ng additional na entry. Para sa cost of goods sold. So, dito naman tayo sa value parted. So, ang value parted mo, yung merchandise sold. Ano yung cost niya? Costing to 2,000 pesos. Ito siya. So, meron kang cost of goods sold na 2,000. And accordingly, nabawasan din yung merchandise inventory mo for 2,000 pesos. Si cost of goods sold, classified yan as expense. Under siya ng expense. Since ang increase sa expense ay sa debit side, so yung 2,000 pesos, lagay natin siya sa debit side ng cost of goods sold. So, nag-increase sa expense, nabawasan naman si merchandise inventory. Si merchandise inventory, siya ay asset. Ang decrease sa asset or bawas, recorded sa credit side. So, yung 2,000 pesos, post natin siya sa credit side ng merchandise inventory. So, meron na tayong additional na entry, debit and credit. So, aside from this entry, dadagdagan pa natin siya on January 7. Debit, cost of goods sold, amounting to 2,000. Credit yung merchandise inventory. 2,000. Lagyan natin ng description to record cost of goods sold. So, ito yung entry natin for perpetual system. Dalawa siya. Debit cash on hand, credit sales, saka debit cost of goods sold, credit merchandise inventory. Kapag ka periodic system, ito lang yung entry mo. And since ang gamit natin, sinabi sa transaction, is periodic system, so di natin kailangan yung entry na to. So, burahin na natin siya. Ginawa lang natin siya for example sa perpetual. Para makita nyo yung pagkakaiba. Sunod naman na transaction. Let's go on January 29. So, almost end of the month. January 29, paid rent of the business amounting to 5,000 pesos. Dagdagan natin ng additional information. A check was issued for this amount. So, ang ginamit mo is yung pera sa bangko sa pagbayad ng rent. Ano yung ating value received and value parted? Ang value na na-receive natin is yung use ng premises where the business is situated. In Tagalog, ang value received mo is yung paggamit ng premises para sa operation ng iyong business. This represents rent expense. Ano naman yung ating value parted? Yun naman yung cash paid na 5,000 for rent. Which ang ginamit mo nga is yung cash in the bank. Cash in bank was used. So, meron tayong rent expense. Dagdagan natin yung ating T-account. Rent expense. Ang increase sa rent expense ay recorded sa debit side. Since rent expense is under ng expense, so, lagay natin sa debit side yung 5,000 pesos. Then, nabawasan naman yung ating cash in bank. Si cash in bank ay isang asset and ang decrease or bawas sa asset recorded sa credit side. So, lagay natin yung 5,000 pesos under ng credit side ng cash in bank. So, meron na tayong entry, debit ng rent expense, saka credit ng cash in bank. January 29. Debit, rent expense, 5,000. Credit, cash in bank, 5,000. Lagyan natin ng description to record payment of rent. Dagdagan pa natin yung transaction on January 30. Check amounting to 3,000 pesos was issued to pay for electricity and water. Ano yung ating value received and value parted? Value received is yung consumption or use of electricity and water, which represents the utilities expense. Ano naman yung ating value parted? Yun naman yung cash in bank used to pay the utilities. Or simply yung cash paid. So, meron tayong additional na account title, utilities expense. Sa utilities expense, under siya ng expense. And ang increase sa expense, recorded siya sa debit side. So, lagay natin yung 3,000 pesos on the debit side of utilities expense. And then, binayaran natin siya using the cash in the bank. So, mababawasan yung ating cash in bank. And since cash in bank ay isang asset, ang decrease sa asset ay recorded sa credit side. Lagay natin yung 3,000 on the credit side of cash in bank. So, meron na tayong complete na journal entry, isang debit and isang credit. Record na natin siya. January 30. Debit, utilities expense, magkano? 3,000. And then, meron tayong credit sa cash in bank, 3,000. Lagyan natin ng description to record payment of utilities. So, nasa hanggang transaction, January 30 na tayo. Pero, stop muna tayo doon. Gusto ko lang i-test kung nakikinig ba talaga kayo or pinapanood nyo talaga yung video. Dito sa T-accounts na meron ako ditong T-account na mayroong unusual na balance. O parang may incorrect na balance. So, stop nyo muna yung video and then check nyo yung bawat account. After nun, sabihin nyo sa akin kung ano yung T-account na may unusual na balance. Iko-correct natin siya by adding additional transaction. Okay? So, if done na kayo, babanggitin ko na yung T-account na may error. Yun ay cash on hand. Tignan nyo yung cash on hand natin. Debit side niya consisting of 30,000 and 4,000. Pag tinotal mo to, ang total niya is 34,000. Pero yung credit side niya, yung bawas, pag tinotal mo siya, yan ay amounting to 35,000. So, pag kinuha mo yung balance niya, 34,000 minus 35,000, negative na siya. Negative 1,000 pesos. Which is wrong. Imposible na magkaroon ka ng negative cash on hand. So, i-correct natin siya. Magdadagdag na lang ako ng transaction. Lagyan natin ng transaction sa January 6. So, accordingly, move natin pababa itong journal entries. Ayan. So, January 6. On January 6, Pepito made additional investment amounting to 5,000 cash. Ano yung value received sa point of view ni Diamond Sari-Sari Store? Tandaan, ang business separate siya from the owner. Ang i-record mo sa business is yung transactions ng business. Any transactions ng owner which is personal, hindi mo siya i-record sa business. Which is yung in-example nga natin kanina is yung pagbili ni Pepito ng cellphone for personal use. In which case, yung cellphone, hindi mo siya i-record sa business. Sa books ng business. So, for January 6, ano yung value received? Yun yung additional investment ni Pepito. Cash amounting to 5,000. Ano naman yung value parted? Nagkaroon ng increase sa interest ni Pepito sa business. So, value parted, additional equity interest of Pepito. Bakit? Bakit value parted? Kasi si business, si Diamond Sari-Sari Store, nadagdagan yung kanyang obligations kay Pepito. Which is yung right ni Pepito sa assets ng business after ma-deducting liabilities. So, in case na si Diamond Sari-Sari Store magsara yung business, kailangan niyang ibalik yung interest ni Pepito, which is represented by the owner's equity. Sa accounting na ginawa natin, represented siya by Pepito Capital. So, record na natin yung transaction sa January 6. So, meron tayong na-receive na cash na 5,000 on hand. So, nag-increase yung ating cash on hand. Move lang natin tong 4,000. Kasi mas nauna yung January 6 sa January 7. So, on January 6, naka-receive ka ng cash. Since si cash on hand ay isang asset and ang increase sa asset ay recorded sa debit side, lagay natin yung 5,000 pesos na additional investment sa debit side ng cash on hand. And then, nag-increase yung interest ni Pepito sa business. Nagkaroon siya ng additional investment na 5,000. Since ang Pepito Capital, under siya ng equity, ang increase sa equity ay recorded sa credit side. So, lagay naman natin yung 5,000 pesos under sa credit side ni Pepito Capital. So, meron na tayong journal entry for January 6, debit and credit. So, January 6, debit cash on hand, 5,000. Credit Pepito capital, ₱5,000. Description: to record additional investment of Pepito. After that, yung cash on hand, magiging positive na yung balance niya. Total ng debits mo is 39,000. Total naman ng credits mo is 35,000. Last transaction, January 31. The remaining cash on hand was used to set up petty cash fund. On transaction January 31, ano yung ating value received and value parted? Pero bago yan, alamin muna natin yung remaining cash na tinutukoy. So, remaining cash on hand. Para ma-determine natin yun, kailangan natin kunin yung balance ng cash on hand. Let's get yung debit balance muna. So, 30,000 plus 5,000 plus 4,000, we have 39,000 total ng debits. And then, kunin natin yung total ng credits. 15,000 plus 5,000 plus 15,000. We get 35,000. Mas malaki yung debit side kesa sa credit side. So, we have a debit balance amounting to 39,000 minus 35,000, 4,000 pesos. So, alam na natin yung balance ng cash on hand. Balik na natin siya sa dati. Burahin ko na to. So, ang remaining cash on hand is 4,000 pesos. So, ano yung value received natin? Yung na-set up na petty cash fund. With balance of 4,000 pesos. So, kapalit nung na-set up na petty cash fund, nabawasan yung ating cash on hand. So, ang value parted natin is the cash on hand amounting to 4,000 pesos used to set up the petty cash fund. Analyze natin siya using the T-accounts. So, meron tayong additional na account title, yung petty cash fund. Ano ulit yung petty cash fund? It is consists of coins, currencies, and replenishment checks that are used or set aside to pay small or petty disbursements or expenses. So, petty cash fund. Nadagdagan yung ating petty cash fund ng 4,000 pesos. Since ang petty cash fund is classified as an asset and ang increase sa asset ay recorded on the debit side, so lagay natin yung 4,000 pesos sa debit side ng petty cash fund. Accordingly, nabawasan naman natin yung cash on hand. Yung remaining na cash on hand, yun yung ginamit para mag-set up ng petty cash fund. Since si cash on hand ay isang asset, and ang decrease or bawas sa asset is recorded sa credit side, lagay natin yung 4,000 pesos under ng credit side ng cash on hand. So accordingly, yung total credits mo dito, 39,000, equal na siya sa debit side na 39,000 din. So ang balance ng cash on hand mo after this transaction is 0 na siya. So record na natin. Meron na tayong debit and credit. Entry on January 31. Debit, petty, cash fund. Magkano siya? 4,000. Debit, petty, cash fund, 4,000. And then may credit tayo sa cash on hand na 4,000. Lagyan natin ng description. To record the setup of petty cash fund. So that's all the transaction for the month ng business na Diamond Sari-Sari Store. Pero check muna natin yung ating journal entries. So every journal entry, dapat ang total ng debits and credits equal siya. Check natin. So equal naman siya. And then para makasiguro, kunin din natin yung total credits and total debits and total credits. So add natin 30,000 plus 15,000 plus 5,000 plus 15,000. And then another 5,000 sa January 6 plus January 7, 4,000 plus 5,000 and then plus 3,000. And then lastly, plus 4,000. Equal siya sa 131,000 debits. Check naman natin yung credits natin. Total din natin siya. So, 30,000 plus 15,000 plus 5,000 plus 15,000 plus 5,000. Then sa January 7 plus 4,000 plus 5,000. January 30 plus 3,000. And then lastly, January 31, 4,000. Dapat equal ang total credits and total debits. May kulang tayo. Check natin ulit. 30,000 plus 15,000. 30,000 plus 15,000 plus 5,000 plus 15,000 plus 5,000 plus 4 plus 5 plus 3 plus 4. Check naman natin yung debits. Baka dito tayo nagkamali. 30,000 plus 15,000 plus 5,000 and then plus 15,000. Tama. Plus sa January 6, 5,000. Ayun yung mali. Instead na 50,000, dapat 5,000 to. Ang nalagay natin kanina is 50,000. Kaya yung mali yung total na nakuha natin. So, total ulit natin siya. Dapat ito ay 86,000. Ayan. So, total debits ng interest natin is 86,000 and ang total credits is 86,000. So, balance siya.